Welcome to the Omnichallenge, where we explore the challenges that marketers, retailers, and consumer-facing brands must overcome to win their customers' hearts, minds, and wallets. In each episode, we delve into the importance of creating customer connections in both physical and digital stores, how to build winning stores, and what's holding companies back. I'm joined by my co-host, Tim Mason, author of Omnichannel Retail, How to Build Winning Stores in a Digital World, and the CEO of Eagle Eye. Tim, welcome back for episode 2. It's lovely to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you. It's a lovely sunny day in London. Spring, I think, we're just having a little bit of release from lockdown. You can just about go and have a drink in a pub garden and meet a few friends in a park and stuff. So yeah, green shoots, hopefully green shoots.
Well, today we're going back. We're taking a step back in time to the 80s and early 90s. That's why I'm wearing shoulder pads. I thought I would get into the sort of spirit of the age. It was very intentional because I don't have anything else with shoulder pads. And the transition from those analog years to really the birth of the grocery sector's first wide-scale loyalty program. And what I see is really the foundation of so many grocery and retail programs, and how they're forming customer connections today. As I was prepping for this episode, I was looking up some interesting stats, and one of them was around barcodes. Did you know, because I had no idea, that it was actually quite recent. 1974 is when barcodes first came out, and that just a decade later, only 33% of supermarkets were using them. And the first POS systems were introduced at retail in 1992. So it's still relatively new, history. How do those, I guess, moments in time and those developments play into retailers' digital trajectory and ultimately transformation?
Gosh, when I joined Tesco in 1981, I think we had 6 stores that were scanning on an old IBM POS system, which they hadn't rolled out any further. And then the project became Checkout Plus. And you're right, during the early 80s, it was all about barcoding every product, putting the technology in. I'll give him a name check here. There was a guy called Harry Pinelli. Anybody from Tesco from the 1980s will remember Harry Pinelli. He was Mr. Barcode. And as a buyer, you had to go and get him to approve the barcode on every brand and every product. And if he didn't approve it, you were in big trouble, and they wouldn't stock your product in the stores. So it was a huge thing. And it was a massive project. I mean, it really was a very, very big thing. And it led to one of the big things that happened in my career in retail, which was, up until that point, you only could look at the performance of a product using goods in data.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow.
And there used to be a printout called the MRG 50, I think it was called. And there were literally printouts, that would sit 6 foot high, that you would go through and you would look at the goods in. And then suddenly we got this thing about what was selling out. Mm-hmm. And of course, then what happened, call that 1985, then a decade later, amazing, isn't it? But for me, it felt like a lifetime. It was a lifetime. But actually, when you look back, it was only a decade later that suddenly you started to get your first glimpse of customer data. So I suppose, as people much cleverer than I have said before, when it started to change, my goodness, it changed fast.
But despite that change, we're talking about, now having a better understanding of, goods in, but also goods out. There's still the fundamental problem there of not knowing who is associated with the goods out.
Absolutely.
And that, I guess, that core operational process that retailers have is, instead of looking at the customer as that sort of goods in, goods out, knowing obviously the movement of what's on the shelves, retailers are really good at that. But they're not good at knowing who's moving those products, right?
And certainly not always, yeah.
Right. Is that why do you think retail chains are still wedded to a degree to these analog systems?
Probably. I mean, you trust what you know to some extent, don't you? I think that, but I think interestingly, you know, even businesses that don't capture customer data will probably do some work around anonymized customer data. So they'll do credit card tracking so that they won't know that it's Vanessa, but they will know that 3742 seems to shop on, you know, with fair regularity and buys these things and doesn't buy those things, and is put into a segment with other people who seem to behave. But of course, it's all pretty circumstantial. And of course, what they don't know is whether actually you're using card number 3893 every other time. And in fact, you know, there's half your life that they're not. This was one of the big problems, I think, you know, when these big businesses started going into convenience and consumers couldn't be bothered to use their loyalty card in a convenience store. So you imagine if where you work, the supermarket that you choose opens a convenience store next to your office. And what you do is you start picking things up on the way home, or picking something up on the way to work. With the result that actually you get to the end of the week, and one week you say to your partner or whatever, you say, I tell you what, let's not bother to go to the big store this week. We'll leave it. We've got, you know, we're going out tomorrow night. You don't go. Maybe then you go in again, you go in 2 weeks' time. Suddenly, the big store's data analytics of your loyalty card is this is a lapsing customer.
Right.
But actually, you could be spending 50% more than you were spending because you're now a much more frequent shopper. You know, this is a big problem because if I'm doing my job well as a big store marketeer, I kick in my lapsed customer program. And I start sending you incentives to come and shop in my big store when actually you're shopping away in my little store, but I haven't created a model in my little store that means you're prepared to tell me what you're doing.
So is that how the Tesco model sort of evolved? Because, you know, when I think about sort of that evolution from the big store to the smaller stores, the more convenience, I guess, led model, and also thinking about the shift as the grocer looked at the customer or the consumer as its North Star. Can you sort of talk about that more?
Well, I know. I mean, I actually think, I mean, the development of Tesco Express, Sainsbury's Local, those other small formats did incredibly well for those UK businesses, you know, and for Tesco, it became a global format. In fact, one of the mistakes that I made when we took Tesco to California was developing a 10,000 square foot store. And actually, I think on reflection, with the benefit of hindsight, a 10,000 square foot store was a small supermarket. And actually, you know, my big supermarket has this and has that, and this store doesn't have it, and it's a bit inferior. Whereas a 3,000 square foot store that has got fresh bread, fresh fruit and vegetables, fresh meat, fresh prepared foods is a miracle. I mean, you live in the States, you would, you don't see that in 3,000 square feet in the US. And actually, I think ultimately would have ended up being a much more potent format. So I think it was a tremendous thing. The thing it wasn't very good for, sadly, and you can't win it all, it wasn't very good for capturing customer data, because in a very pressurized, limited number of items, small reward, if I'm only spending a fiver, I'm only getting at 5p, and I'm going to delay everything, and I've got to find, it's not worth it. And, so you lose the data capture. Now, of course, if you go to Jeff Bezos, Amazon's Go, he won't even let you in the shop.
Correct.
If you're not registered.
Yeah.
Literally will not let, which is the complete antithesis of what a conventional retailer would say was convenience retailing. Convenience retailing, you put it everywhere, you let everybody in, you make it as accessible as possible. The reason that the convenience stores in the UK, a Tesco Express or a Sainsbury's Local or a Morrison's Daily or whatever they are, the reason why they're 3,000 square feet is because in UK law, if you're above 3,000 square feet, you can only trade for 6 hours on a Sunday. Okay. If you're below 3,000 square feet, you can trade for 24 hours on a Sunday. So if you think about it, the whole strategy was keep them small. They're open 24/7 or whatever it is, 7 to 11, to coin a phrase. I wonder who thought about that one, and that's what you do. And so yet Bezos comes along and he says, no, and I've stood outside an Amazon Go in New York, and the one by Ground Zero in that shopping center there. And I sort of thought, my God, I wonder how long it's going to take me to download this. And I wonder if the Wi-Fi is any good and whatever. And actually, it wasn't too bad. You ended, it was a sort of 2 or 3 minutes. It was fine.
And it's a very different experience.
But it is completely different experience. Now, it's in the spirit of, so I can take your money off you and you will never have to queue again and all those other things. But it just is interesting, I think, how different a mindset.
I've got a quote for you to counter yours, and this is by the management consultant legend Peter Drucker. Actually, I've got 2 quotes for you, and I think these reinforce putting the customer at the center of everything, and also the value creation. The first one is the point or the purpose of a business is to create a customer. And the other one sort of takes us into other parts of the book. The aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or the service sells itself. And I thought about those because so much of what you write about in Omnichannel Retail is around good marketing. So how do you define good marketing now in the context of omnichannel, and why is it so important?
I think there's nothing more important than good marketing, really. And it is what ultimately differentiates performance. I don't mean good advertising or, a nice app, or I mean really thoughtfully designed products that meet real consumer needs and are engineered in a way that they continuously and persistently deliver value to those consumers. It's a very deep and fundamental thing, which at some point you then need to tell people about.
Yeah.
But actually there's a ton of work before you ever get to the, to the bit about telling people about it and how good it is and all that other stuff. And so I'm much more interested in how you organize the organization to genuinely be able to listen to consumers, to really understand. I suppose the beauty of a retail business was you get loads of shots at it. you might think that my olive oil is okay, my vanilla ice cream is fine, but you might think that my Ethiopian coffee beans are the best coffee you've ever, and I get you at the, I get, for somebody else, it'll be the vanilla ice cream, but I get and if you think of, Tesco's, before we said create value for customers to earn their lifetime loyalty in 1997, in 1992, we said every little helps.
I remember that one. Yep.
Which, and I think, God bless their cotton socks, they still are saying it. It was our version of we try harder. It seems to me that it was a colloquial way of saying, we'll create value for you to earn your lifetime loyalty. But I think the beauty of is we get lots of different opportunities to win you. So in a way, lots of pieces of data giving me a nudge that says, Vanessa seems to really like that, Looks like Vanessa would like to get offers on a Thursday night before she shops on a Friday. Maybe we should try that. Whatever it might be, we get lots of opportunities to win you over. And of course, in a personalized world, this is the beauty of it. Why do I like personalization? Because it's an opportunity for me to do better marketing.
But you also need the mechanism to achieve that. Right? Because you can envision that all you like, but if you don't have the structure to do it, you're not going to have the data capture. You're not going to have the ability to understand what that data capture actually means and then what you do with it.
Which is why I do this job, because you can do it. It does exist. It is possible. Interestingly, I've had, since our inaugural podcast or webcast or whatever we call this thing.
It's both.
One of the things that I've had some quite nice feedback, mainly from friends, but somebody's listening. But when I say friends, professionals. And one of the things that people said was, I really like this brain nervous system analogy. I do get that. The brain exists, we know that. If you plug everything into it, you can have a repository of knowledge. And Eagle Eye is a nervous system. Eagle Eye can respond to that across many, many different channels, taking into account, there is sort of no excuse. I don't know what the end game is any more than anybody else does. But I've sort of got this notion that, that you've got to get started. And I do think, frankly, that a business like Tesco that started in 1995 will have an advantage over businesses that are starting in 2020.
And there are two things actually I wanted to talk to you about, because one is how marketing and good marketing, very good marketing, really proved itself as a critical driver of Tesco's success and obviously the Clubcard. And the second question is, or really discussion around, is what do companies do without a first mover advantage that Tesco had back then? So let's go back to sort of looking at how marketing proved it's as the critical driver. Tell us more about that.
It's interesting. A minute ago, I was talking about the importance of good marketing, and it's not about doing the ads. And I mean, I think it's probably fairly obvious to you and anybody that listens that I love marketing. I mean, I think it's and in a way that, I think it's a really important thing. And I'm sort of quite a values-led sort of a guy, and I do genuinely think that I've spent my career, by and large, trying to create value for people, bring them pleasure, bring them things that they enjoy, such that they're, and I get quite a bit of satisfaction out of that. Very few businesses do good marketing. That's the trouble.
And that's not exclusive to retail, that's across the board.
No, I completely agree. And so I was extremely fortunate that I was the marketing guy working for a great marketeer who became CEO for a retail business, and that with his team, we created performance, perhaps the like of which has never been seen from a mature, business in terms of transformation. From 7 billion of market cap to 40 billion or whatever. I mean, it's unbelievable performance. And it was brilliant. So rule number one, work for somebody who understands marketing.
Not just retail operations. Those two are
correct.
Inextricably linked for success.
And actually, that probably is rule number two. Rule number one is work for a company that understands marketing. Now, Tesco absolutely did not understand marketing, the Tesco I joined. And most retailers don't.
And yet they made a massive bet on the Clubcard program.
They did. But basically, they bet on Terry and Terry's team.
Okay. And that came down to...
And so, and we said, look, I was ex-Unilever. Richard Brasher, who went on to be CEO of Pick and Pay, was ex-Unilever. Mike Coop, who went on to be CEO of Sainsbury's, was ex-Unilever. There were a number of people who were there who were from RHM, which was a big branded business back in those days. We were a load of FMCG guys who ended up as very, very young men, I hate to say, but as very young men working for a retail business. And we applied as best we could FMCG type marketing disciplines to a retailer.
Okay. And that was...
started being very successful, and so the business backed the success. And then the thing was, so we started, we were good at looking at the world through the eyes of the customer and saying, if the customer is seeing this and doing this, don't you think they'd like that? And we were quite sure-footed, they're getting more and more interested in healthy eating. Maybe we'll launch a healthy eating line. The limited, Aldi and Lidl are arriving. Prices, maybe a value range would, ranges are very big. They're very confusing. If you want to buy the best thing, how do you find it? How do you know? Maybe you call it finest, So we developed this way of doing things, and it proved to be very successful. And so, in the end, we got the train set because we kept being successful, but it stopped. The point that I was going to make was the point that I was making earlier was marketing is difficult to do, and you want to do it in a place that's good at marketing. So either join a business that does it naturally, and if you can't do that, then go somewhere where at least there is a highly influential person who believes in it. Otherwise, you'll end up doing flyers, leaflets, and ads, and that's not marketing.
That is,
for me, that's marketing comms or marketing services. That is not marketing. And I think the reason it's difficult is because if you genuinely follow the customer, you have to keep breaking the business to do what customers want. To
reinvent and to continuously evolve. So
actually, that just gets too hard.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's not having that first mover advantage, which Tesco did at the time.
My philosophy there is, it is great to be first. There's no doubt about it. And we had a period of doing a lot of things first, which by that stage we'd become market leader. So the industry copied. But I think we got a lot of kudos, Clubcard being the best example of all. We got a lot of kudos with the customer for doing things that they didn't expect, that they'd never seen before. And they thought were pretty cool, know. And so you got this thing that Tesco's on my side. Tesco seems to understand my life. Tesco walks in my shoes. And all of that is sort of really good and really important.
Well, back then, that investment in today's terms, in pounds, was $100 million investment, £100 million, excuse me, investment. In today's terms, that's somewhere around 167 million pounds, or in US dollars, about 230 million. So if we think about that level and how companies and retailers are thinking about, well, how are we going to continuously innovate? What are we going to do that's different if we sort of take that approach that Tesco had then in today's? How can the retail organization be different? And is any retailer, let's put Amazon aside, spending that kind of money to transform their organization, to develop, wide-scale loyalty initiatives that are different, that aren't just, the traditional, let's say, toolbox, as you said before, the ads, the flyers? Is that happening? Can it happen in today's operating climate?
I think it can. I think we're doing it with Southeastern grocers. I think that one of the things that I think is worth thinking about, particularly in the US actually, but more generally perhaps, is how much money retail businesses spend on flyers. You mentioned flyers. They'll be spending 20, 30, 40% of their marketing budget on flyers.
On paper
flyers.
Not even digital. And
everybody hates them.
Yeah.
The only trouble is they know they work, but they don't know which ones work and to whom they work, but they know they work. So net, you have this huge activity, which is incredibly expensive, but at the margin it's working, and you get really terrified if we stop it, So my view is you've got to take that digital.
Yeah.
You've got to go digital. Save all the paper, create a green thing where, we're saving paper, help us save paper, we'll all save paper together type is one thought.
But that's not the reason. I mean, the reason why we need digital coupons is we need to understand who is responding to those digital. There's absolutely no relationship to the customer beyond the redemption at the till, but there's still no association with me, Vanessa, buying Tropicana for my Bellinis, or rather my mimosas.
Completely. I'm making a distinction, Vanessa, which actually probably is a mistake, between a flyer which is basically an advertisement of products and prices and a flyer that has coupons in it. I was talking about one that's an advertisement of products and prices that says, Tropicana is half price this week, Pepsi is buy one, get one free. That sort of flyer. That needs to go digital.
Mm-hmm.
In going digital, it needs to go personalized.
Yep.
So you're not interested that Pepsi is buy one, get one free, but you actually are super interested that San Pellegrino Oranginata, Orangina, whatever, Limonata, sorry, I'm getting my faux Italian confused. You're super interested in that. And so miraculously, your personalized flyer shows you that product, not the Coca-Cola, which you've never bought, but you have bought, they see you buy this. So use the data that they know about you to personalize this, to put in front of you things that are interesting. From all the experiments that have been done, limited as they are, there's very good evidence that works. That change that, make it personalized, you'll sell more,
But that
and then your point, maybe you put some coupons in it, maybe you put some other stuff in it, but you're there. But the thing, going back so that I actually answer your question, that will probably only cost you 5 or possibly 10% of your marketing budget, on which you're currently spending 30 or 40. So now the question is, what are you going to do with the other 20 or 30? And the advice I give is, don't save it. repurpose it to do better marketing, and because if you just shrink the marketing cake, eventually the consumer's not stupid, they just spot it.
Well, I was going to say reinvesting in the customer, right? Because that's where that really should be directed. And this sort of goes back to some of the hesitation around the launch of the Clubcard program, where there was real, obviously at £100 million in those days, or even now, you know, the organization is clearly concerned. How is this going to play out for us? We know that it was a success, and we know that it drove, you know, 15 years of tremendous growth for Tesco's. But if you think about today, and that, let's say, fear associated with investing and reinvesting of that scale, and moving from something that is a tried and true, because flyers are a tried and true, you know, promotional tactic, and they have been effective, as you said, for a very long time. You know, they do drive footfall, they get people into stores, they sell product, but there's still that big missing link. Coming back to fear, you know, to be a customer-facing business, you need to know who your customers are. Paper flyers, you don't know who's buying that stuff. And that's a perpetual challenge. You know, retailers are scaling their operations, they're applying automation and technology in every facet of their business, except this piece, to the scale that they are on other sides of their operations. And I'm going to paraphrase you, because you said retailers probably know less about their customers than they do about their lighting. Oof, that's a bit harsh, but it's true. So how does that change? Is it about promotions? Is it about driving loyalty? Is it about understanding and investing in the customer? Is it all of the above? Because you did that and you changed that mindset at Tesco's.
I mean, the first thing I think is it's a will, not skill point. In other words, you've got to want to know. And you've got to believe that by knowing, you will be able to create more value for less input, or even for the same input, but you'll be creating more value. Then once you know, then you've got to be relentless in. And I noticed actually when I was glancing back at the book, you know, one of the things that I said to Terry in the book was, he was remarkably restless and questioning, and always would come back to, but why do they do that? Why do they think that? Find out some more about that. You know, it was always asking this question, why are consumers doing these things? And that sort of fundamental underlying restlessness, I think is very important. I still haven't asked you a question about what to do if you're second. And the answer, in my view, about what to do if you're second is do it as if you're first. Do it as if you invented it. Do it like you really believe in it, and smash it. Because if you do it mealy-mouthed, I'm only doing this because I'm copying and because the boss told me to, consumers see through that immediately. Whereas if you go, this is bigger, this is better, this is brighter, this is shinier, you've never seen anything as brilliant as this before, some people will go, well, maybe I have. But some people will go, oh, no, I haven't. You're right. That's completely true. That's absolutely brilliant. So the short answer to your question of about 15 minutes ago is, if somebody does it first, then just, if it's the right thing to do it, but do it like you believe in it.
Well, let's switch gears to the direct correlation between digital transformation and a higher market cap, because you mentioned this before and you experienced it there. You can see it. We can see it in retailers like Amazon, JD, Alibaba, Walmart. Deloitte actually published a study that I read last year around companies' digital maturity and the direct impact on financial performance, although it wasn't retail specific. So really, if you think about how, if the retailer is going to develop or transform their business from this traditional model that's still analog to becoming digitally enabled, digitally transformed, knowing that that is going to be a critical driver of their future success and financial performance and drive loyalty. There's a lot there. What do they need to do?
I think probably, as we were saying, it's about having the vision that says, I'm going to know who you are. And when I know who you are, I'm going to be able to do things to make my product or service better for you. So it's about having great intelligence, you know, whether you do it yourself or you invest in a data business or you just hire a data business, but you need to be really good at data and data analytics. Data analytics is improving fast in terms of speed of handling data, AI handling data, predictability, and so on and so forth. You then need a network of systems. I was talking earlier on about the nervous system. You need a network of systems that enables you to get the output of that data analytics through to the right consumer. And then ultimately you need a wrapper and a bow that's a user experience that means that people like it, that it feels good, it feels, you know. So going back right to the start of this conversation, Clubcard was a brilliant thing, but the user experience of it in convenience stores wasn't good enough, so they didn't use it. It's actually my fault. I should have said, this is unacceptable, I am going to fix this. Even if it ended up with me having Bezos's solution, which I won't let you in the bloody shop unless you tell me who you are. You know, I'm not, but I let them, I didn't take the challenge seriously enough. So I think that's, for me, is those are the key things.
Is that what you refer to as the dial methodology? Because I didn't know what it was. Or really the structure of how.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So so dial is data,
yeah,
leading to insight, driving action, promoting loyalty. So the first thing is, are you deriving all the insight from the data you've already got? Are you sure that what you really need is more data? I bet most businesses don't need more data. They need to do something. They need to just get better insights from the data that they've got. The second thing, so for example, we think that we can predict with a pretty high degree of accuracy, and we're not a data business, we're a transaction business, when somebody is next going to go to the pub. Probably not coming out of lockdown, in the snow and all those other things. Yeah. But under normal circumstances, we can predict when you are next likely to go to the pub. If we are right, that says a tremendous amount about how we should market to you, which is whatever we do, don't send you an offer saying, come to the pub tonight on the night you're planning to go to the pub. Send you an offer that says, when you come to the pub tonight, would you like some peanuts with your beer? Yeah. Because an upsell offer when you're already planning to come is a much lower cost offer than an offer that's buying a trip. So, you know, so the second point is do you need more data, or do you just need to get the insight out of the data you've got? Once you've got the insight, you have to do something about it. You have to act. And in the Tesco world, the action was supposed to drive more loyalty. So get the data, see what you can learn from it, take a resulting action, and then measure the output of that action. And you know, the thing that we were looking for was loyalty. And so make sure that you always have this, that you operate to this dial model. And because one of the things I say to people, you know, is because if you're not careful, what you can do is you can get data leading to interest, promoting awareness, leading to absolutely nothing.
Nothing, and then it stops there.
So, you know, it is not a given, even when you get the data, that you'll do anything with it. And what I've always said to people who I'm encouraging to go down this road is, you know, make sure you smash the lights out. the thing, if the back doorman in the store knows that there's something going on because he's getting an extra truck delivering every day because they're so busy, which is what happened with Clubcard, they know Clubcard's a success. 500,000 people know Clubcard's a success. You don't have to do business cases and, they're all going, whoa, can we have a bit more of that, please? So, make sure, because one of the issues with personalization is you've got to do an awful lot of it. One of the problems with personalization is I can take a cell of 1,000 people and I can show astronomical increases in levels of loyalty, but the business at large will never see that because 1,000 people don't move the needle. I've got to be working in hundreds of thousands or possibly millions of people in order to move the needle. So I might be trialing and testing down at the 1,000, but I've got to have a scaling technique.
Right.
Make sure that I get up to the big numbers. Otherwise,
that's what's going to drive the impact. Otherwise, you're not going to have that.
Correct. You just can't counterpunch broadcast marketing. You just haven't got the weight,
Well, let's think about, because we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Let's think about something that's very, relevant to what you just described, and it's sort of the scale of data. It's how companies use data, and what happens when that, let's say, data bite gets turned off, and what do companies do then? Because Apple is about to release a software update tomorrow, not literally tomorrow, but in the very near future. And it's going to require app users. Now, of course, it's only iOS, it's users that are going to be impacted, but people can decide what companies and apps and websites can track them or not. Right? They have that choice, and that's going to cause massive disruption for a huge digital advertising industry. But what about for the retailers who are already struggling to know who their consumer or the customer is, and they're largely anonymous in some or many of the retailers' channels? What happens then?
Well, I think it's interesting you should say that. I mean, I think whether it's Apple, Google, Facebook, this whole thing around privacy, third-party cookies, tracking, whatever, life is going to get more difficult. For good or for ill. I mean, it is what it is. I'm trying to work 5 years ago, 7 years ago, wasn't there at all. Yeah. So we will live without it. It's just that a whole slightly tacky industry potentially, or some elements of the industry have got spawned off, running off the back of it. But I think the thing that I think that is interesting is, in my view, it puts the retailer in an incredibly strong position because they can know who their customer is, that there is a precedent whereby I will give you my data because you will give me good things in return for it. There's a custom and practice that has been working for over 20 years now, that they are the natural owners of first-party data. And what they can do is they can link together consumer behavior with the first-party data to measure the efficacy of marketing unlike anybody else. I mean, it's true today, all these media channels have their attribution models, which says, because Vanessa stood outside a Publix, we know because we got a ping off her phone, we're certain that she bought those 3 products from the ad she looked at on Facebook. No, all you know is Vanessa was in a Publix car park, and actually she was going to Starbucks. She wasn't going to Publix at all, but that sort of thing. So I think that it's tremendously advantageous for retailers. And I just want to build on that, and we'll come back to this, I'm sure, later in the series. I want to spend some time with you talking to our listeners and retailers about thinking about their customer base as an audience, as well as being just customers. And if they, because, you know, that we're 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, these guys have got big, they're not as big as the media, you know, as the social networks.
Mhm.
No, nowhere near. But they're
They
big,
have
and they've got
big
first-party
audiences.
data.
Right,
And
right.
but they've got first-party data. They're in an incredibly powerful position. I think Goldman's are doing pushing quite hard, you know, subject matter on, you know, there's a whole new industry for retailers to make a lot of money out of the fact that they are actually media businesses.
Media, that's it. We are definitely going to be talking about media networks, retailers, media networks, in an upcoming episode. And that wraps up this episode of the Omni Challenge. Tim, thank you so much, as always, for a compelling discussion, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. Tune in next time when we discuss whether loyalty is dead. We are going to talk about that, at least the way we know it today, what omni-channel loyalty is, and whether companies are rewarding the right behaviors based on the customer data they don't have and what they do have. So to follow each episode, you can download Omnichannel Retail, How to Build Winning Stores in a Digital World. And to enter our competition to win a free copy, you can visit www.eagleeye.com/book competition to learn more. Thank you again, Tim.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks, everyone. See you in a few weeks' time.